This tradition of Satyananda Yoga was founded by our Parama Guru, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, who was one of the foremost disciples of Shivananda ji. Swami Satyananda lived with Swami Shivananda ji, his Guru, for over 12 years. In the Divine Life Society, the ashram that is there in Rishikesh, which was established for uplifting humanity by Swami Shivananda ji. As a 20-year-old, Sri Swami Satyananda, who was then known as Dharmendra, was in search of someone who would be able to give a deep and a complete vision of this spiritual search that made him leave his home and embark on a journey. And when he met Swami Shivananda, Swami Satyananda ji had the ability to get into very deep meditative state where he would encounter a void, a complete cessation of external awareness, a preliminary stage of samadhi, one can say. So he was able to go up to that point on his own. And he met his Guru and he said, every time I try to do this, I'm able to leave behind the idea of the self, of the individuality. But beyond that point of void, there is no progress for me and I need guidance. And Swami Shivananda ji very compassionately asked this earnest disciple, stay in the ashram, do seva, and when the time comes, you will discover your true nature. And the next 12 years of time, Swami Satyananda ji gave himself, his efforts fully for the upliftment of all the people who came to Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. His Guru's instruction was his breath when he stayed there. And he took up several duties in the ashram. He would cook, he would proofread, publish books, maintain the entire ashram, run the printing press, and whatnot. And one such duty that was given to Swami Satyananda during that period was to protect the children who were living in a Veda Pathashala in the neighborhoods of Divine Life Society. I am talking about the early 1950s. It was a forest. It's not like how it is today. If you go to Rishikesh now, it's a bustling city. But in 1950s, it was a remote place. It was a jungle with bears and cheetahs, fox, scorpions and snakes, huge forest animals used to carelessly walk around because it was their forest. And these children who lived in the Veda Pathashala needed someone to ward off any wild animal. And therefore Swami Satyananda was posted to take care of these children, and he would be awake throughout the night. And these children used to wake up very early, take a dip in the Ganga, and start their early morning chant at 4 a.m. And Sri Swami Satyananda would be awake throughout the night, and at about the time when these kids would wake up and come for their morning chanting, that is the time when he would close his eyes and take rest for a while, because from 5:30, 6 a.m. he had to start off his other duties at the Divine Life Society. Every day he would take a small nap between that 4 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. or so, when these kids would be chanting the Vedas. So this duty went on for a while. And one day there was an event in the Divine Life Society ashram, and there were large gatherings because Swami Shivananda ji was like a dynamo. He was like a magnet. He was like the sun, the resplendent sun of spirituality, and people were just drawn towards him. Hundreds and thousands of people would assemble around him and sit around him just to see, just to get a glimpse, just to hear his voice. He used to sing amazing kirtans, give satsangs like they were flowing out of him like the Ganga flowing. And he was very generous. So people felt very blessed when they were around him. So thousands of people came to have a darshan of Swami Shivananda. So one event was happening, and for the beginning of the event, the kids from the Veda Pathashala were invited to do a chant. So when these kids started chanting, Swami Satyananda ji, who was around there organizing things, started chanting it along with him. He felt he knew this. He had not formally gone to a school where he could learn the Vedas. But to his surprise, whatever the children were chanting with the Vedic scholars who were chanting there, he knew it. He knew it like he had also by-hearted it. And he was very surprised, and later on he went to his Guru, then checked with him. Gurudev, this happened to me. It looked like I knew whatever these kids were chanting. And then Swami Shivananda ji pointed out to him, you were there, seated, and you were relaxing. In your deep state of relaxation, you have completely absorbed the chanting that was being done by the children at the Veda Pathashala. And that is how this seems to have gone into you. And this was a very important input. And the person that Swami Satyananda ji was, he was a very deep person. He wasn't casual. He pondered over this. How is it possible for a person sleeping to absorb? And even before coming to the ashram of Swami Shivananda ji in Divine Life Society, Swami Satyananda had gone through initiations into the system of Tantra. He had great exposure to several practices and approaches, tantric practices. He was introduced to them by some senior tantrics. And basically his interest was in Vedanta, in the absolute truth, the oneness. And he had learnt and practiced deep meditation, as I told you in the beginning only. So when he pondered over this experience of receiving this Vedic wisdom, even at the sleep state, that was the foundation, the seed that was sown into him, to observe how this mind has the capacity to learn even better than when one is awake. And he started thinking, applying, experimenting with it. And later on, when Swami Shivanandaji blessed him and told him that now you take yoga from door to door and shore to shore, when he moved on from the Divine Life Society and travelled all over the South Indian, North Indian and the whole subcontinent of Asia, then he established the Bihar School of Yoga. He wanted to really develop a very important practice, because from his observations of the society, he came to the clear understanding that the biggest problem that people were suffering from was the tension. Sri Swamiji used to say, tension is the biggest problem, not world war, not famine, not poverty. Tension is the biggest problem. Tension, hypertension. And the antidote, that is the only way that people can get relief from, is to become relaxed. And on the banks of Ganga, where the Bihar School of Yoga has its beautiful ashram, dedicated to the whole of humanity and dedicated to Gurudev Swami Shivananda, where this practice was well conceived, curated, thought through, Swami Satyananda ji did experiments with it and established a beautiful practice which has got 8 well-planned stages based on the scriptures. Now, if you had to approach the same practice in the scriptural way, either through Tantra or through the Vedantic approach, you would have to be a master of yoga. You will have to be a master of the Sanskrit language. You will have to understand the nuances of tantric rituals and know the rituals, be able to do the rituals for hours together. For example, a puja that you do in the tantric practice might take 6 to 8 hours in one go, where you'll have to remain seated without moving for the whole period and continuously do one ritual after another, and all of it completely in Sanskrit. And Swami Satyananda realized when he made his travels that if a practice is offered to the society which is so elaborate, which requires so much of prior knowledge of the systems of yoga, of the language of Sanskrit, and patience and time, effort over 2-3 decades to perfect the practice, humanity wouldn't have the acumen, the mental capacity and the time and the ability to prioritize so much of effort for this. So he brought a very ancient practice belonging to the Tantras. Because if you look at the Tantras, Sri Swamiji says that the Tantras predate even the Vedic practices. And even a modern researcher like Max Muller dates the Vedas to 5,000 plus years. Traditionalists, however, do not agree to this modern view. According to us, it goes into kalpas and yugas, cycles of thousands and thousands of years. So such an ancient practice which belonged to another yuga, which belonged to another time cycle, has been preserved, and it is not given in the old ancient method, but it is presented in the most beautiful modern way. This is the genius of our Parama Guru Swami Satyananda ji, and it is his signature. Yoga Nidra is so popular today in the world. Every yoga teacher takes refuge in the practice of Yoga Nidra. It is definitely part of their prescription for their students, irrespective of what tradition of yoga they teach. They could be from any tradition of yoga, from any Guru Parampara. But one common practice that everyone is now talking of is Yoga Nidra. And it has these two words, yoga and nidra. Yoga is here referring to a higher state of awareness, which is not limited to the conscious state. In its study about the mind, the system of yoga talks about 4 different stages of the mind at a preliminary level. It talks about the Jagrad Avastha. It talks about the Swapna Avastha. It talks about the Sushupti Avastha. And these are also later on in the modern times agreed by psychology to some extent. I would safely say that psychology has preliminary knowledge of the mind. If a deep knowledge of mind has to be developed, it is in the system of yoga that one can actually find it. I am not going to go into the details of it because that is a separate topic and would need a couple of months or weeks of deliberations. But I'm going to give you just a preliminary idea of what yoga talks about the mind. It says in the Jagrad Avastha, which is comparable to the conscious mind that psychology is talking about. The Jagrad Avastha is the state when the individual is fully available for the senses, for the world, to interact with the outer environment. And in the Jagrad Avastha, the self-identity is also very clear. You know that you are so and so. You know your name. You know where you are. You know what time it is. You have a sense of yourself. You have a sense of space. You have a sense of time. You have a sense of what you know. Like if you were a Tamil and you know that you know Tamil. But if you're not a Tamil, if you are from some other part of the world and you don't know Tamil, you know that you don't know Tamil. This is the state that is known as Jagrad Avastha, or the conscious state in the psychological term. The conscious stage, however, has to take knowledge only through the route of the intellect. The intellect has to understand, has to accept, be convinced that this information that is being given is valid. And for that, it looks at certain proofs. The intellect cannot accept what is being offered. The intellect has, as a foundational quality, a sense of questioning. In fact, this is the basis on which science and question is raised in the human mind. The temperament of yoga is also very scientific. I'm not saying yoga is scientific. Yoga is far beyond science. Science is a much later development in the human mind. In the interest to question and find answers about life, science has come very recently, about 300 years back. Yoga has done its study and has developed a very solid foundation of understanding about the individual, about this whole creation. And it says that during Jagrata Avastha, the person is fully available for the body, and through the body fully available to participate in the external world. However, any knowledge to be gained happens only through the intellect. And the self-image is clear, the self-identity is clear. Whereas there is a second stage that yoga talks about. It's called as the Swapnavastha. And it is corroborated with the dream state, where one is in dream. And dream state does not have the faculty of the intellect to ratify everything. For example, in a dream, you can be a unicorn talking in a particular language, and you can drive a bus and then come out of the bus through a swimming pool. Nobody will question. The intellect will not ask, how can you be a speaking unicorn that is driving a bus and coming out of a swimming pool? Nobody will question, because the intellect does not function there. So this is a difference. During the dream state, this faculty of intellect is not available. And the self-identity itself is different. It is not located in this body. One does not feel that I am this body. For example, during the dream, you don't claim yourself as Setu, or you don't claim yourself as Nirmala, or you don't claim yourself as Balaji. You know I am dreaming. You do not know I am Balaji dreaming or Jayagopal dreaming. So the feeling of I am is there, I am so and so is not there, and this I am is watching the dream. And in the dream state, like the sense of self is not the same as in the wakeful state. In the dream state, the sense of time and space are also very different. The sense of matter is also very different. You're not limited by the external world of time, space and matter continuum. You can have a minute of a dream and it might feel for you inside the dream that you've been dreaming for years together. You may be dreaming for a long time, and when you wake up you realize that you had slept only for 20 minutes or half an hour. But you might have dreamt of years in the dream. So the sense of time that is operating in the external gross physical environment which we experience when we are awake is not operating during the dream state, which is called as the Swapna Avastha. So, yoga talks about a Jagrat Avastha, the wakeful state, a Swapna Avastha, the dream state, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind that psychology talks about. And then yoga speaks about the Sushupti Avastha, the sleep state. In the sleep state, even the inner world seems to be resolved. There is no perception of anything. Complete blankness is there. There is no intellect, there is no visual, there is no experience, there is no sense of self, there is no mind. Absolute abiding blankness is there. So the sleep state disqualifies the dream and the conscious state. The conscious states automatically removes the experiences of dream and sleep. So they are mutually exclusive states. Now, these are the only three states that the knowledge systems about mind, modern observation of mind are talking about. The conscious, the subconscious and the unconscious. Whereas the system of Tantra, the system of Yoga, talks about several other stages of the mind. And in Yoga Nidra in particular, we are interested in understanding how we can access another different state of the mind. And it is called as the Turiya. Turiya means the fourth. The first, second and third were just mentioned, which are Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avasthas. The Turiya Avastha is the fourth state of consciousness that yoga is talking about. And in the Turiya Avastha, there is an access to a higher capability of the mind. And this is what Sri Swami Satyananda discovered in his experience and later on researched in his own mind and with his people, with the students who came to him, the disciples. And he trained them into the practice of Yoga Nidra, and over a period of years he perfected the practice of Yoga Nidra in which one has an opportunity to access this fourth state of one's own inner nature. And the beauty of this fourth state of inner nature is it is an inclusive state where one has a super awakened mind. And in modern psychology, though there is no mention about it, they are now coming to a conclusion that there is what they are calling as the hypnagogic state of mind, or they are calling it as a superconscious state. And if we are able to access this superconscious state, it has not been clearly defined. A lot of experiments are still going on in the psychological echelons. But yoga has developed clear methods in which you can gradually let go of your identity at the conscious level, where you can resolve the senses, resolve the mind, resolve the intellect, resolve the self-identity, the I feeling. That also can be resolved. And it can be done through your own process. So even though you will be aware, you will not be sleeping. The senses will not be functioning, but you will not be sleeping. So it's a very interesting thing to think about. As I mentioned to you about the conscious, subconscious mind, in the subconscious state, the senses don't function. You don't hear, smell, taste, touch. During the dream state, you have a dream experience of different heat. You may be sleeping in an AC room, but having a dream of being in a forest fire, and you will feel very hot in the dream. Whereas in the external environment, you would have pulled a quilt over your body, and because you're feeling very chill. So the dream sense experience is different from the experience of the senses that is available in the conscious state. So in the Turiya Avastha, in the fourth state of the consciousness, one is able to resolve the senses, kind of temporarily pause them, that they are not bringing inputs to you, they are just quiet. But you don't enter into a state where they don't function. It's not like a sleep or it's not like a dream. But it is not like the wakeful state where they keep on providing some kind of a input. It's a very interesting experience which you will get when you do the practice of Yoga Nidra. Because today when I am talking, it's not a very interesting, appealing talk in the sense that you can immediately relate to it and say, wow, yeah, I agree to this. It's not like that, because it's explaining certain deeper aspects of mind. It looks like a theory. But when you do the practice of Yoga Nidra, this is not theory. Because you will move from the dimension of the conscious state to the subconscious state voluntarily through a process. And the senses will be paused. The intellect will be paused. The emotional states will be paused. The self-identity will not be restricted to the knowledge that is there, to the memories that are there and the exposure through the senses, but the self-identity would become expansive, become so all-encompassing. The whole of this universe is available for a person to explore into, because the individual is not limited to this body, the individual is not limited to the senses or to the intellect or to the mind, but the individual operates from a different state of self-experience. So during Yoga Nidra, in which Swami Satyananda has kept 8 different stages, one gradually moves from the physical experience to the deeper aspects of one's own self. And at each stage of Yoga Nidra, we have an opportunity to unburden ourselves. I'm not going to go further into that mind-related discussion. Now I'm coming to the practice and the nuances of it, and then we will move into the utilities that are possible for us by applying Yoga Nidra in our life. So as a practice, it can be done within 10-15 minutes as a short relaxation, or it can be done as a long practice with all the components built into the practice, ranging from 30 minutes to 1 hour, or it can go into a very deep spiritual experience under a great master, and it can be done for 2 hours in one go or even more, where you can completely disidentify yourself from this body-mind complex identity with this ego identity that I am this body, I am this knowledge, I am this person, and you can expand, as I was mentioning earlier. So, from a very short 10-15 minute practice to a very deep 2-hour practice, a whole range of practices have been created by Sri Swami Satyananda in the early 1950s and 60s, which he offered during his 20 years of dissemination of yoga to the world. And the steps of the Yoga Nidra is a preparation. You have to lie down in a posture and prepare yourself, because during Yoga Nidra you're not expected to sleep, So you have to prepare yourself and become completely still and motionless like a statue. Today when Nityaji started off the Shanti part, I thought she had embarked on teaching a Yoga Nidra practice, because she went into the details of body awareness and breath awareness and rotation of the awareness to the different parts and all. So I thought, okay, even the Shanti part is inspired today by Yoga Nidra. The preliminary relaxation itself, when done, one feels totally relaxed. We actually have tension in different layers of our personality. We accumulate tension in the physical personality. In the physical body, it manifests as, tightness of muscles. It manifests as rigidity in the body. Many people are there, they can't smile. You crack a very big joke and then they will, okay, say like that. You'll actually feel very depressed that you tried cracking a joke with such a person, because there is so much of burden that they are experiencing, even in the physical level, that these muscles will not open up for them. So we have tension in the physical body. Apart from the muscles, it even affects the heartbeat. In fact, the ischemic heart disorder, which is one of the biggest killer, for which humanity has spent countless amount of money. So much of revenue has been spent in, saving people from a heart disease, right? You all know about it. The ischemic heart disorder, the heart attack, is not a problem in the physical functioning of that pump, but it is precipitated by an experience of stress. A very deep, profound stress is felt, and the person's heart is not able to deal with that level of stress in the mind. So stress in the mind can get accumulated in the way the heart beats, the pressure that is experienced throughout in the blood vessels in the body. It can affect the way your eyes function, your kidney functions, your liver functions. So stress affects the body. In the last webinar also we spoke about how one can convert distress into eustress, and Yoga Nidra is one such practice. You regularly do your Yoga Nidra practice, the whole body will become supple. It will become light as a feather. I'm not saying that your weight will reduce. It's not a weight management program. I'm talking about the subjective experience of feeling dull and heavy, that you have to, pull yourself along. Don't feel like that. You feel like you're floating, because the stiffness in the body is completely gone. And then the next stage in which stress is accumulated in our body and mind is it consumes, and huge chunks of energy are totally exhausted. It is siphoned off by stress. 5 minutes of anger is enough for a person to feel tired for the whole day. 10 minutes of worry is enough for a person's heart to cringe and not be able to beat the next beat and go to death. So powerful it is that it takes away huge chunks of energy. In our system, energy is called as prana. So stress affects prana in a way that it exhausts your prana. And when you do your Yoga Nidra practice, it is a restoration of relaxation. It is a restoration of muscular organ relaxation. It is a restoration of the prana. You start experiencing that you have higher amounts of prana. It's inexplicable in words. You have to try, give yourself a chance to do Yoga Nidra. If you have not yet, today is a great day for you, because we have planned a short practice of Yoga Nidra also today during the session. Then it takes you through the deeper and higher aspects of the practice, where there is a sankalpa and then there is a rotation of consciousness. Rotation of consciousness is a condition, is a practice in which you take your awareness, the component of observation, to different parts of the body, and that actually releases stiffness from different locations, and wherever stiffness is released, from there huge amount of prana is also released and made available for you. So as a result, after a few months of practice, Nirmala ji, when she was talking, she said after 3 months her life gone through so much of change. How can that happen if you just move your hand and leg and do some breathing and just lie down and do a shavasana? How can it bring such a change? The change is not just at a gross level, the change happens at all the layers of your personality. And after rotation of consciousness, there are still further advanced components of Yoga Nidra, which we introduce to people gradually, step by step, over a period of time. And these are some preliminary thoughts that I felt are necessary for all of you to have about Yoga Nidra. And I think it will be nice if we can do a Yoga Nidra. Do you all agree with me that it will be nice if we can do a Yoga Nidra? Or do you want to just hear more about Yoga Nidra and just have an intellectual exposure to it and leave at it? What do you think? If you want me to talk for another half an hour, 1 hour on Yoga Nidra, 1 week, or even 3 months, or 1 year, every day for 1 hour, I can keep on talking about the greatness of Yoga Nidra. So we have at least 2 people saying, let us do the practice. Stop talking. So may I request Aruna ji to guide us all through an experience of Yoga Nidra.